I found with the transition town work that there's a lot of serendipity and flow in the work, and I wonder whether you've actually come across this experience as well, working with grassroots projects.
That when people are engaged in a purpose that's important to them, life opens up. And I think we were talking about this as a kind of flow that you've experienced in your involvement with the Transition Town network, and kind of things have kind of like fallen into place.
Absolutely. I mean, it's lots of people turning up just at the right time, good coincidences, serendipity, and it seems to have a sort of life of its own in a funny sort of way. And yes, I wondered what that's about, whether this grassroots effect has some kind of power energy in it in itself.
I really like the idea that larger purposes look for people to act through. And it's just a way of thinking about it, but if we were to think of, there's an idea whose time has come. Yeah. And in the same way, you could think that the idea that women should get the vote, or that apartheid should be dismantled in South Africa, it was something that was waiting to happen. And when there's a situation that's waiting to happen, it's almost like it acts through people. And when it acts through people, it's like that larger acting through actually brings us more to life. And I've described this in my book as power through. Power through, and I think of it in many different levels. It's the way that a larger story acts through the dots, that team spirit acts through team members. And maybe there's a way in which life, or the desire of life to continue, can act through us. That when we really see ourselves as part of life rather than just separate individuals, there's a way of thinking that maybe the desire of life to continue can act through us. And when you kind of feel that, when you feel like life pulsing through our veins and arteries, it actually is a very vibrantly alive feeling. It's a good feeling. It sounds like you've had that with this.
Yes, it's amazing. Thank you.
And
a very nice way to put it. Yes.
And I think what's really good about this is because sometimes there's been this artificial split between selfishness and altruism. You know, selfishness is acting for yourself, and altruism is acting for other people. Yes. But what the research on happiness shows, and particularly the approach of positive psychology, is that actually people tend to be happier when they're engaged in serving purposes that are bigger than themselves. Really? When they're just doing the kinds of things we normally associate with pleasure and leisure, they tend to have lower levels of engagement, lower levels of meaning, and lower levels of satisfaction. And Martin Seligman, who's one of the leading positive psychologists, he talks about the paths of pleasure, engagement, and meaning as the three ingredients of happiness. But pleasure by itself is not enough. You also need to have meaning and engagement as well. And that's what you get when you act for a bigger picture, when you act from an altruistic purpose. It actually increases satisfaction in life. It makes people happier. And I think when people can see this, when they can say, hey, you know, these people on this transition town process, they seem to be having a really good time. How can I become part of that? So, and that's what makes an idea contagious, because actually, if you want a really good life, find something bigger than yourself to serve. And I think that, you know, the planet is about as big as is going round here. But also, it's like when you hear a situation calling to you, when there's a need in the situation around you, I think of the adventure story again. We come back to that idea. What really begins an adventure story is a worthy challenge. And when there's a worthy challenge, something that's kind of worthy of us, that really calls us out to respond, we come much more to life. And I think one of the reasons there's so much depression in the West is because so many people don't feel called into and connected with a larger stream of life, where they feel the sense of belonging, rootedness, spirituality, connectedness with life in a way that is nourishing. It's nourishing for the soul.
Thank you very much, Dr. Christopher.